and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to customize your PMF input. Sometimes you might want to run PMF just over a certain time period, or you realize that some variables should be excluded from the analysis. To achieve this, one has to delete the corresponding rows or columns from the data and error matrix. Doing this manually can be very tedious, so we developed a tool where you can easily blacklist data points or periods with just a few mouse clicks. If you go here to pre-treatment and then click here on the dark green button, a new window opens, and here you can then select or modify your PMF input. In the newly opened window, you have here on top the option to load and save the PMF input file, which I will explain a bit later. Then below you have the visualization of the effective PMF input, and on the side you have the options to blacklist your data. To exclude certain variables from your PMF analysis, you can either drag a marquee around the variables you want to exclude in here, or you can just pop the whole graph to have a better overview, and then you can drag a marquee here and then unselect the ones you selected. Close the window again and then simply go to apply selection and apply selection so that only the variables that are highlighted in blue will be part of the effective input. As you can see, now also your overview graph over your effective PMF input has updated. This whole process is additive, so if you want to exclude more variables, you simply go back to the graph and unselect the ones you don't want to have in your PMF input. Then you go back to apply selection and exclude the ones you just unselected. We have an option here to reset the PMF input, but this will reset the input to the original PMF input. As you can see, we're back to square one here. Sophie is not able to go back step by step, and therefore we have here this option to load or save your effective PMF input. So for example, I do not want to have any MZs above 120 in my PMF input, so I blacklist those. And then I can save that as an Igor text. And I can continue, and if needed, can load it back. As I mentioned before, excluding variables is additive, and so is time series. So one can easily combine blacklisting time series and profiles. For the time series, we have slightly different options. For example, we can blacklist based on hours, days, months, and years. So for example, if you only want to run PMF over summer, you can easily blacklist everything except June, July, and August. So we now have here the updated PMF input. If you want to reverse that, you can either reset your PMF input, but that would also reset your profiles, or you can simply load from an existing Igor text file. And then you can reset your time series, but because we saved the profiles, not your profiles. As you can see, we're back to normal time series, and when we check here with profiles, we still don't have anything above 120. So for time series, we also have the same option as for the profiles, where we have here a graph where we can pop and where we can simply blacklist certain points or certain periods. We can do several at the same time. That's no problem. As you can see, we have blacklisted now certain points. Here I have some filter measurements collected at different stations. With this data, we have a variety of different options on how to create classes. To create a new class, you can go here to Classes, and then first we have a visualization over the current classes. At the moment, everything has the same color since there's only one class. To create a new class, we simply go to the second tab, and then we have different options to create a class. The easiest way to create a class is based on a text wave. For example, I have a text wave that is called Station List, where I have for each sample which station it belongs to. So I simply can select this text wave, and Sophie will automatically create the classes using the names that are listed in this text wave. As you can see, we have here now the classes ranging from station 1 to station 6. And if we go back to the visualization, we now see that each sample has now a color based on which station they belong to. There are more options on how to create classes. Let me remove what we just did, and then we can use certain keywords to create other classes. For example, Sophie has the option to create classes based on months. For this, simply type monthly and then hit here Create and Add Class. Sophie is now automatically generating classes for each month in your dataset. So if we have a look at the visualization, we see here each month is colored in a different color. Sophie also has the option to create classes based on a fixed length. For example, if you want to have always 10 or 20 or 50 samples grouped into the same class. For this, simply write block and add the numbers of samples you wish to include in each class, and then create the classes. So what you can see here now is we have 10 classes, each of which contains 100 samples, except for the last one, since we only have 953 samples in total. Let me switch to another experiment. Here I have some data in high time resolution. For such data, Sophie is able to create classes based on hours or minutes. For example, if you would like to create a class over the traffic rush hours, simply type hours and then add the hours you would like to create a class over. For example, 17 to 20. Then create here the class. It will ask you for a name, and then it will create the new class. If we look now at our data, we can see, if we zoom in, that we have our traffic class over certain hours a day. We also have the option to create classes over minutes, which could be interesting if you have some chamber data. So simply type minutes. Simply add the minutes you like to create a class over, create a class, and select a name. There's one more way on how to create classes, and this is using the index. So using the indices works for time series and for profiles, but I'd like to show you with profiles. In this experiment, I have data from two different instruments. The first variables were measured by an ACSM, while the last variables were measured by an exact. I would like to have two classes now, one for the ACSM data and the other one for the exact data. Of course, I could create a text wave and assign each variable to either ACSM or exact measurements. But since the variables are grouped instrument-wise, it's much easier to use indices. For example, I know that my ACSM variables range from 0 to 97, and my exact variables are from index 98 until 122. So I can create classes easily based on the indices. This is true for profiles and time series. So if we go back to the visualization, we can see now that we have our ACSM variables in red, and what we can barely see are exact variables in orange. So we can use classes now to blacklist. So we go back here to input data, and then here under classes, we have now the list of classes we just defined. So for example, if we would like to exclude the exact data from our PMF analysis so that we run PMF only over ACSM data, we can unselect exact and then blacklist our data. And as you see, we only have ACSM data here now. The same goes for time series. Here I'm back with the filter data measured at 6 different stations. So if I would like to exclude one or the other station from my PMF analysis, I can go here to classes. I see here all classes listed again. And if I don't like, say, station 3 and station 6, I just uncheck them and blacklist. And this is how you can easily modify or customize your PMF input. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you learned something new today, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you for our next tutorial.